it's me, Polo. We're in Split, and I have a few minutes before sound check to take you a little bit behind the scenes on what I use. And the tour is Chocobec, and I'm with Zucchero. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to pick the camera up here. I'm going to take you to the main rack that I have on stage. This is two MarkBass 1200s. The settings that I use, this bottom one here is for the contrabass. I'm using a couple of really nice features on the MarkBass cabinets. It works. One is the VLE and one is the BPF. Okay, and what these are I call them attenuators. What they tend to do is you can actually roll in sort of a more vintage sound and vintage frequencies to sound like warmer or you know, older, little slower kind of sound, you know, not so, you know, digital. These are the settings that I use. I use a little bit of bump on the low. Everything that I have on the mid-range is pretty much flat, and then I have, you know, nothing on the mid-range high, and then roll back the high. Over here is a very useful thing. I go post my amplifier to the house, but on the contrabass I don't, so we're not using the line out. I set my gain up a little hotter here just to get just a little more hit on the input. And on the master over here, this is where I set my stage level. Same with the one for the regular bass. These are my settings that I use. I use this right here a lot. Sometimes I'm able to change my gain just a little bit, going to the front of house to give it a little more of the sound that I have on stage. I don't use any of the vintage stuff because I need it to have a little bit more snap and hear the horn and hear just a little bit more modern sound. This is a very, I'm sorry about the lighting, but the light people are working on the lights. These buttons here, I keep them off, and this is one of the things that's really important that I would like to say. I'd like to say that these right here change the sound of this amplifier so much that you have to be very careful when you're looking at one of these in the store. Start with these off and then roll them in to get just a little bit more of a deeper or a Fender sound or whatever sound that you might be looking for. Now over here is my rack. This is a small version of what I usually use. There is two wireless transmitters in here, and there is a synth module that I use, and there's a mixer under here, and then I use two synth modules that trigger off of my bass here, which has the MIDI. One of the main basses I use, which also has MIDI, is the jazz bass, because Zucchero is very into the jazz bass. Now, for one of the songs that Zucchero does, it's a big song that I use the synth on in the studio, and I use the super synth. Right now it's set to octaves, but I use the super synth on a preset setting to get the sound of like an SH-101, which is what I used on the record. This bank to this side is all contrabass except for this section here. This section is coming from my regular bass, which is going through a Boss. I use both Boss preamps and, you know, sort of a pedal board thing. Over here I do all the low Taurus bass stuff and some high stuff, bells or whatever. So, and here's the main rig. The way it's wired is this bottom cabinet is the bass guitar. Also with this one on outside gigs that's hooked up, but usually it's one. This is the contrabass side. This is the synth side. So that's kind of how that's set up. The cabinets are in live-in boxes, and they look like that on the back. This is the back of the stage. This is where the horns are. This is also where the two drum sets that we use are. There's one concert orchestra system, and then we have also a regular kit. This is where the strings go. David Sanchez is right over there. And here we are in an empty arena. It's really nice that it's quiet enough for me to do this. I'm going to try to give regular updates. The next update that I will give, I will go through the sounds on the MarkBass 1200s, which are unbelievable. They're so powerful, it's unbelievable. So, more to come from Polo Jones and MarkBass.